Good morning, everybody. Early Saturday. Yeah. So those who are laughing know it's an early Saturday. Right? So I guess it's safe to assume all of us. Can you guys hear me?
You must turn on the mic.
That's one thing.
On the bottom.
Oh, it's on. Yeah, it's on. So most of us are here are app developers, right? How many of you are app developers? Yeah, good chunk of us. What do the rest of you do?
Normal developers.
Okay, developers. How many of us are developers? Yeah. So the rest of you are not developing mobile apps are here because you want to develop mobile apps, right? That's the way of the future. So why do we build apps, right? The very first reason why we build apps is passion, right? There are companies like Navoda. How many of you have heard of Navoda? They're a company based out of London. They create some brilliant apps. They also help organize the London DroidCon, right? And there are people like you and me who are passionate. We create apps. We want to be in the mobile app ecosystem, etc. Right? What are the other side benefits, or why do some other people also create apps? We want to be famous. We want to be the next Bill Gates, the next Zuckerberg, right? Some people who are currently very famous in the mobile app ecosystem are like Marco Ahmed. How many of you know this guy? How many of you know? Yeah, there's one person. How many of you use Instapaper on iOS? How many of you are iOS users? Okay, the rest of you are Android? Okay, well, I'm happy. One of my slides then has the right data. Right? So he's the creator of Instapaper. He's like a single man company. Brilliant application on iOS. Has formed his own genre now. There are other apps on Android called Pocket that do the same thing. And there are also other developers like Abdu Sasikala. You might not know him out here, but Forbes calls him the Nigerian shilling billionaire. While he was a student, he started making billions of shillings, the Nigerian currency, with mobile apps itself, right? So he became famous. And of course, then there's money. We all need money, right? Should I even ask that question? How many of us need money? The rest of you? Yeah? It's either a full-time job or pocket money. Or the best thing that can happen is you're passionate about something, and then people start paying you for it, right? That's the best thing that can happen to you. Correct? No? Yeah? So when it comes to the mobile app ecosystem, there are around, if you look at it from 10,000 feet, there are like 4 ways how to make money, right? The very first way is basically charge the user. Either sell the app or have in-app payments, and you tell the user, give me some money because I've created good content for you, right? So what are the benefits of charging the user, right? You have immediate and predictable revenues. If you're selling an app for $1, you have 100 app sales, you made $100. Simple math. And it's at instant. You don't have to wait, okay, I got a user, when will he pay me, etc. That happens a little in in-app payments, but it's very simple. Then, if you're using in-app payments, you can leverage new content to charge the users. If you're building something like Farmville, you can tell the user, I have tomatoes, they're 23% bigger. Would you like to pay $1 for it? Some users would pay, right? The negatives are it reduces reach. Why? Because not everybody pays for apps. There's a large percentage of people who would not pay for the apps. And then there are a bunch of users who want to try your app first. They're not going to pay $1 to try your app, right? So that system needs a trial mechanism. Then there is, of course, piracy. There was a very nice, I wouldn't say, it's well written, let me not put it nice. An app, I can't recollect the name, but basically the person went on to say, he made an app, he had 100 sales, but 10,000 active users. Right? How does that happen? Piracy. Right? You can't stop piracy. It's a hard thing to stop piracy. And if you're using in-app payments, income is not guaranteed. A small percentage of your users will pay for those redder, bigger, 23% larger tomatoes. Not everybody, right? And the other challenge with having a direct paid monetization model is you can't monetize emerging market users because those users are different, right? They behave differently. If you attended I only remember his Twitter handle, Foo Bartel's talk on day for yesterday. you kind of understand, right, how China is different. And most of the emerging countries are similar to China. They have their own variations. Another interesting way to make money in the app ecosystem, slightly a harder mechanism, is have deals with handset manufacturers. When Flipboard, okay, sorry about the blue text on the black, this thing, because of the light, I think we can't read it. Anyway, so when Flipboard came out on Android, they partnered with Samsung when Samsung launched the S3. That's a good way to monetize. Swipe directly licenses the keyboard to OEMs. I mean, for every install you put, give me X amount of money, right? The big advantage of this kind of mechanism where you partner with the OEM to kind of burn your app onto the device is you get massive reach, right? If somebody buys a phone, he's getting your app. You don't have to worry about the user discovering your app through the App Store or anything like that. That problem is solved. The negative is it's a niche space. A device is not going to come pre-installed with more than 10, 15 devices, unlike the 900,000 apps that we have on the app stores. So it's tough, but it's possible. The third one is selling your apps via content provider. Now, what a content provider is, he's basically a publisher or an aggregator of content, and he has his own billing pipeline. He's either partnered with telcos, or he has his own billing pipeline, and he can sell your content for you via those pipelines. He can leverage that pipeline to bill, right? The advantage is, of course, you start leveraging operator billing. You can sell apps to your user or in-app purchases to your users via operator billing. Because operator billing has lesser friction for the user buying than the Play Store, than the App Store, especially if the user does not have a credit card. Negatives, you need to build a relationship with the content providers, right? Of course, you might also need to maintain additional builds for these, because it's also possible that the content provider says, put my logo here or talk about me or something like that. The fourth way is ad-based monetization. Positives, it gives you the maximum reach. If your app is free, there's nothing stopping the user from trying your application, right? And if you look at ad networks, there are a lot of ad networks out there. It's an open ecosystem. And in an open ecosystem, competition is there. And as competition is there, stuff improves. And when stuff improves, you get the best out of it, especially if you're app developers and you're using an ad network, right? And it's a gift that keeps giving. You might have a user who's bought your app once, but he'll use it for a year, half a year, and he'll constantly, he's an active user is always paying you constantly, right? The negatives are, it needs a critical mass. You cannot have just 100 users or 1,000 users and have enough revenues. You'll have a very small amount of revenue, but it probably won't be enough to even cover server costs, right? And if you don't use it correctly, you may piss the user off. Okay, I think I should stop moving. I'm troubling you.
It's my work.
Okay, so that's how we monetize, or the current ecosystem of monetization, right? Now, a few things, even before, you need to start thinking of monetization when you're building your app, or even when you're planning about your app, right? Now, if you look at this slide tells us the gross national income of each country, right? The redder the country, the higher the income, average income in that country, the whites kind of go down. You'll notice that most of the Western countries are red. Everybody earns a lot, right? And as everywhere else, people are not earning that much when compared to the Western countries, right? So you have a difference now that people in the redder countries in the red shade will probably pay you more and vice versa. Now, if you compare this with just the platform spread for iOS and Android, as in which is the leading network in those countries, you notice a similarity, right? All the whites are Android dominated countries. All the reds are iOS dominated countries. So when you're building an app, you need to plan who is your target user, and depending on that, you will know which platform to hit first. You cannot have an iOS app selling in India, because, well, it's not a dominant platform there, But that being said, it also tells you if you plan to start with one country and move and evolve your app, it kind of gives you a strategy for that too. The other thing it tells you is, if you look at the next billion mobile users, they are from emerging countries, right? Even right now, the top 2 countries which have the largest number of mobile users are India and China. India has close to 900 million mobile users. China has more than 1 billion mobile users. And most of China's users are actually data users. In India, it's growing. Very soon, the number of data users in India will be larger than the population of the US. Right? So it kind of gives you the size of the market in terms of users. Right? So you need to understand your target users. Now we kind of know that the next big wave of users will come from emerging markets. Right? But they are different. We heard in the talk day for yesterday that users are different, the environment is different, cultures are different. The same thing will mean different things in different places. Right? So a few things about emerging market users. They won't pay for your apps. They either can't or they won't. They might not have credit cards. They might have the capability to buy a smartphone, but not to constantly invest in apps every month on month. Right? And the other thing interesting about emerging market users are many of them totally skipped the PC revolution. Right? They never experienced the internet on the PC. They never went and to the dial-up modem which went chee chee choo choo and then connected. Right? They never even experienced broadband. The first experience for the internet was on the mobile phone. Right? And so they don't have the concepts in their head that the thin minus button closes the window, the cross button closes the windows, multitasking. They don't have those concepts in their head. They never learned it. And they probably don't need to because they'll never use a PC in their life. They will just use the mobile to do all their work on the internet. Right? The advantage of this is those kind of users prefer function over form. Right? I put this in detail in the next slide by what I mean by this. But since the users are, they don't need your app to be beautiful. They need your app to work because that's the first time they're experiencing your app, right? And they don't have any predefined standards or guidelines in their head, right? In developed markets, it's a whole different scenario. Everybody's used their PCs. They have multiple PCs at home. They have multiple smartphones in their pockets, right? And those guys are also very active in terms of payments, which is why iOS is very popular and very strong in the US, right? Because people pay and they have the ability to pay. Now, when I was talking about form over function, which screenshot is more beautiful here? Left or right? Left? So the left is the New York subway app, right? It has like 50,000 users. Can you guess how many downloads the app on the right has? It has more than 1 million users, right? It's not that good looking, but it is functional. So the app on the right is basically an app called M Indicator. It's a very popular app in Bombay, India. M stands for Mumbai, where a user can figure out what's the next time the metro is running, what are the taxi fares, what are the bus routes you can get. And it's not a beautiful app, but it works, right? Now, if all of us who use Mac OS, Windows 8, we like this app is beautiful, this app has transparency, etc. This app has nothing of that, but it still has more than 1 million users. So if you're trying to target, or if your audience includes a bunch of those emerging market users, you don't need to be a beautiful app, right? Whereas if you're building an app for a New York subway, you need to tell him that you have to walk this much, you have to wait for this long, because that's what he started expecting, right? He starts using Google navigation, and that's what he started expecting. Any questions still here? The other thing that's interesting is the platforms and the ecosystems have evolved in such a way that users love free. Android was already known that almost all the apps on the ecosystem are free, right? And that's because I think it's come from almost the open source ecosystem. And if you have an app that's free and you have another developer who thinks, this app is so simple, why is it paid? I will build it and give it out for free. That's the culture in Android, right? iOS was initially not like this, but it's slowly moving towards this direction. Even now, I think some of the reports state that close to 90% of apps on iOS are free. right? So it also tells you that most of your users prefer free, right? And you need a good plan to monetize the non-free users or get users to pay. So with these points in, you also need to start researching how to about your app, how to monetize your app, right? The first thing you need to research, how your competitors are making money. If you have no competitors, you can sort of define how to make money. But otherwise, your competitors will define how you're going to make money, unless you're disrupting the model, right? For example, most of the Office apps or Documents apps, they're paid. So if you can come out with a free app and disrupt the entire ecosystem, well and good. Otherwise, you kind of have to go free, right? Because there's a lot of value there. You also need to study how the genre is kind of monetizing. For example, if you look at games, most of the very popular games which have more than tens of millions of downloads are free or either free or have in-app payments, right? So it tells you a lot about how those apps can be monetized. Another point to note is if you have a very niche app, right? People who have the same problem like you are willing to pay for solutions. It might be a very niche solution, but people will pay for the solution or anything else. Or a niche, it can be niche content, it can be a niche way to do things. Right? So niche solutions can demand a price. Right? So that being said, I would like to go over like 4 secrets of monetization. Basically, if you're building an app, like few things that can help you increase your revenue. So if you look at the app ecosystem currently, app developers kind of do these things. They have a paid app or they have a free app, right? It's either pay to remove ads or pay to get more features or pay to unlock features. Right? A better way to do this is combine those models. Now in the previous model, the app developer is deciding for the user how he wants the user to pay. Now if you have an app that does both, that goes both free and paid, you let the user decide how he wants to pay you, right? If you have a look at this slide, the user can download your app, which probably has ads in them, and then you can tell the user, if you don't want ads, or if you want additional features and don't want ads, why don't you pay me? So what you'll start noticing is a large chunk of your users will continue using the free app, and they'll still be monetized. And then a small chunk of users, around 10 to 20%, will start paying for your application. But the big thing you're doing is you're letting the user decide how to pay for your app. You're not taking that decision on yourself, right? So let the user decide. He's your user, right? He's your customer, and customer is king, right? The other thing you need to do is have ads that are rich, and you have to place them in good places, right? Now, if you look at a magazine, the most beautiful pictures in the magazines are usually the front and back covers, right? Because that's what entices the user, and that's also the most premium property. Right? If you have an ad in the back, the advertiser will pay you the most, right? Because if you look at it in the other way, there is no mind space between the ads and the content. You're separating that mind space. So always have rich ads, right? So put an ad on the exit, put an ad on the on launch, and then you don't need to put an ad in between. You have full screen, rich premium ads on the launch and exit. You don't need to put banner ads in your app, because they will earn the same amount of revenue for you. If you put a banner app in your application, depending on where you put it, you might not generate enough revenues, because you're asking the user to kind of decide whether he should play the game or he should look at the ad. Don't do that. Right? The third one is use mediation. How many of you know what mediation is? Right? Okay, so in the ad world, mediation is basically, when you're requesting for an ad, it's not, you might not get an ad every time from the ad network. So what you start doing is you start requesting ads from multiple ad networks so that you always show an ad to the user. You don't miss an opportunity to show the ad. In turn, you don't miss an opportunity to generate revenue. Right? The concept in ad networks is called fill rate. So your fill rate should be close to 100. It's theoretically possible to go 100, but it's very hard to go 100% because something will always kind of go wrong in the Murphy's Law, right? So that's mediation. So if you look at, even in ad networks, when you're using ad networks, make sure you use mediation, because so that you make the most revenue out of it. Now there are 2 kinds of mediations, right? You can either go to a mediation network, who does only mediation. They don't have their own ads. They will tell you, I will go to 10 people for you and get their ads, and I'll show it to you. And then the other one is where the ad network themselves do mediation. You should try to go to the ad network directly, because what happens otherwise is you will go to the mediation network, who will take a cut of revenue for himself because he's working for you, and he in turn will go to other ad networks, right? And who will also take a cut because they're also working for you. So if you have a pie, the pie is getting cut twice. Instead, if you go to an ad network directly, the pie is only getting cut once. So you need to go the hybrid way, right? So make sure you use mediation, go directly to the ad networks, right? And try to use a server-side mediation network. So when you look at mediation, you can either have a server-side mediation concept where you hit the server once and the server goes to 10 different places to get you an ad, or a client-side mediation where the phone itself is sending 10 requests out. Now, all of us developers will know that if a phone is sending 10 HTTP requests, it's eating 10 times the battery. Not approx exactly 10, but it's eating more battery. You don't want to do that. You want the experience to be better for the user, right? So make sure you have server-side mediation, right? And have a hybrid mediation if you can. So if there's a mediation network or an ad network that gives you mediation, so an ad network that can give you their own ad sales, right? And they can mediate for you with other networks, or they can also do something that we call as aggregation. So even if you don't sign up for mediation, if they don't have an ad, they will go to another ad network on behalf of you, and they'll get you an ad and then pay you, right? And they also select an ad network that allows you to leverage house ads. How many of you know what house ads are? Okay. So imagine you have an app A, which has 1 million downloads, right? And you have now built an app B, right? What's the best way to promote your app?
Show it in pie.
Yes, exactly. Show it an app A. So basically, you're showing your own ads in your own application, right? That's house ads, right? Select an ad network that allows you to use house ads because you're already leveraging your target users. If you're a game development company, you've built one game. There's a very good chance that people will love your other game too. So they're already your target users, right? So go pitch to them and let them know about your app. So that's house ads. So if you use a hybrid mediation mechanism like this, you get the highest fill rate. That is, you make sure the user gets to see an ad every time, and you get the highest revenue, right? The fourth thing is distribution. We call it distribution here. It's more in line with Steve Ballmer going developers. How many of you seen that video? Yeah, I'm not going to do that here. Right? And distribution is everything, right? You need to make sure your app gets to your users. We heard in the previous talk that the distribution chain in the console industry kind of got messed up. That's how the app ecosystem kind of picked up, because they made distribution so simple. And distribution is important so that you reach to all your users, right? So 3 ways that can help you increase your distribution over and above just putting it on the App Store is put it on multiple app stores. Of course, you can't do that on iOS. I would say go put it on Cydia, but that's up to your own thing, right? But Android is an open ecosystem, and almost all other ecosystems are slightly more open, right? So put it in as many app stores as you can, right? It's a small amount of work that can get you more users. So if you have an app on Android, make sure you put it on GetJar, make sure you put it on Mobango and on other stores. The advantage is these app stores are not as big as the platform stores, and there's a good chance that you can start trending on that app store, right? Because it's a smaller ecosystem. And if you do that, you get more downloads, right? The next thing is try and partner with OEMs. If you try and ask them to get your app burnt on or pre-installed on the handsets, or try and get them to at least talk about your app. We have Samsung and BlackBerry in this event. Go talk to them, show them your app. If they like it, they will promote it, right? Because it's also promoting their own ecosystem, right? The other thing you can do is paid distribution. Now, we talked about house ads, right? Where you're showing your own app's advertisement in another app of your own app. Now, if you were to do the same thing in like another app from a third party, right? That's a paid promotion. Basically, you're going to an ad network and telling them, why don't you promote my app? I'll pay you money, right? Now, the big advantage of this is with running such campaigns, you start getting enough traction that the app store you might start trending in the app store. putting in some amount of money and getting X amount of downloads, and you start trending, you might get 10x downloads organically because the app has started trending in the App Store, right? There's a big benefit to that. That's my talk. And you guys can review my code now. Is it even visible? Yeah. So it says if done, void done, if questions equal to true, please ask. Else, there are Twitter handles, our emails. We're doing a t-shirt contest. So if you tweet what superpower your app has with the hashtag superpower t-shirt and SmartDevCon, do mention us at vserve.mobi. You might win a t-shirt, right? Thank you. Any questions?
I'd like to ask about this concept of the front page and the back page ads. You said that it was good to put ads on the launch screen and the exit screen. Do you have some kind of a survey or study to back this up, or is it from your experience, or is it a guess?
So we have this tool called as the App Wrapper, which lets you put in launch and exit ads without writing any code. What we have noticed, our number says that those launch and exit ads, it has a 10% CTR, which is CTR is basically click-through rate. So 10% of the users actually click on those ads.
Okay.
Right. So it tells you a lot, right? That those ads are actually working.
Okay. Thank you. That
Yeah.
was
Any other questions? Cool. Thank you, guys. Also, we have developer dollars, which look like these. Right? So basically, they are a good way for you to earn $100. Just come across on our booth, and yeah, we'll give you some. Thank you.